Please give a warm welcome to director Simon Curtis. I should have said welcome back.
Yes, indeed.
Simon.
Unfortunately, I'm on my own this time. There's no Lady Cora with me.
She's with us in spirit. I want to start with, we're used to seeing the opening. We see Highclere Castle. We see Downton Abbey. You made the decision this time around to take us somewhere else, to London.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of debate about that. And because the expectation is the opening credits arrive at Downton. But Julian, I think rightly, wanted to take the family into the London season. Mm-hmm. And I think it works well, delaying the arrival for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned to you your work with your cinematographer, Ben Smidard. Mm-hmm. That opening sequence, spectacular, and you start blurring the lines between the upstairs and the downstairs in the theater where we see them in the balcony sharing, up above. Can you tell us about that aspect of the film?
Yeah, I mean, I had the idea to put the servants in what we call the gods in the cheap seats upstairs. I just thought it was very much on theme, that the Granthams are at the best seats in the house, and then the camera rises up and finds the servants very happy to be at the theatre, but nonetheless in the gods, as they say.
And we had not seen, for those who are not from London, there in the summer there is the London scene, which is very busy with the Royal Ascot. There is balls and then the theatre.
But not so much now, by the way.
Well, it used to.
Yeah, the London season, yes.
But we had not seen that prior in the show before. Tell us about the importance of.
Yeah, I didn't work on the show, but I think didn't the aunt have a house in London? So there were storylines in London, but they were very much interior. And we tried to sort of take the characters out onto the streets of London. To give that sense of the excitement for, because where Downton is set in Yorkshire, everything will be very isolated, and particularly for the servants to be there and all the hubbub and the excitement would be a wonderful experience.
This takes place 7 months after the last film that you directed, but there is so much change that happens, and you lean into the changes of the 30s.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, obviously the theme of the whole film is change, and change is inevitable if you want to carry on living. And we wanted. I mean, it was 7 months after the death of Violet. And we wanted her to be referenced, just like a beloved member of a family would be referenced shortly after they've passed away. And then, of course, there are the financial problems hitting the family, and the hope that the American brother is going to save them.
I mentioned to you this right outside. There is some incredible set pieces that you do in this film. But to me, there's two quiet moments that knock my socks off. One is Carson and Lord Grantham quietly having conversation in the cottage as equals. And then later on, you have the scene with Lady Mary and Anna and downstairs. And they're, again, as equals, just having a quiet conversation. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I'd always loved the show, and there was that moment, I think, in this first series where Carson and Mary shared a hug, and that always seemed to me the epitome of the show, that it's really about one big family who live under the same roof, upstairs and downstairs, male and female. So that was always in my mind, and actually I visited the set in, I think, the first or the second season when they were doing that scene which was called the servants' dance, where upstairs and downstairs are dancing together. And that was very much in my mind when we used the sort of dance as the motif of those memories at the end. And those two scenes are beloved scenes. In fact, interestingly, the two men Hugh and Jim wanted a more overtly emotional scene between the two of them, and Julian was resolute that this would be accurate to men of that time, even though they're almost like brothers in some way, but they wouldn't overtly sort of declare gratitude and love to each other. But it's all there between the lines.
Yeah.
And I love that moment where, in his own cottage, Lord Grantham gives Mr. Carson permission to sit in his own house. I love that moment.
Yeah.
And in contrast, the two, the Mary and Anna scene towards the end, which is one of my favourite scenes too, was initially meant to take place in the big exit scene where everyone's outside, before they walk off. But on that day, Joanna Froggatt went in. Well, we thought she'd gone into labour, so she had to leave the set. And in fact, it was a false alarm, and she's happily had a beautiful baby since then. But we decided to move, but we had to move the scene downstairs because we had to leave Highclere. And as we were doing that scene, I said to the two actresses, what about physical contact? What about body language? And they both absolutely said, we shouldn't touch. As a director, you have to honor the fact that these two actresses have played those characters for a decade and a half, and their instinct is paramount. Mm-hmm. And again, I look at that scene, and it couldn't be more emotional, but they don't touch.
You have spent 5 years of your life making these two films, and your wife has been 15 years working on this project. How special is this for you?
It was very, very special because, I'm a big family man, and it really is a love letter to family, this film. And that's why I wanted to put what we call those vignettes at the end, seeing these couples going on into their futures together. And certainly for my family, Elizabeth being in this show has been huge. And I went from being a sort of plus one, politely, or a groupie, to being the director. And so I was very happy to take it to the finishing line.
How emotional was it for you and for Elizabeth and the rest of the cast to film this last moment?
It was very emotional. I mean, they say, the actors, they've had 72 last scenes, because when the series ended, when each film ends, but this, this was the end, and it was emotional. But it was tricky because the actors were saying goodbye, the audience are saying goodbye, but the characters weren't necessarily saying goodbye. So we couldn't have weeping and wailing in every scene. So we had to keep a lid on the emotion.
I mentioned that there are these incredible set pieces that you worked on. I want to start with the Petersfield Ball, and that magnificent staircase, and putting the actors ensconced in the bottom of the stairs. How did you guys arrive to that moment?
Again, that's the genius of Julian, the writing. They had to hide under the stairs, and we found this, I forget the name of the house, but this magnificent staircase. But that's a wonderful moment, seeing them all crouched. And I love it when Lord Grantham looks up like that, and to see that family who, historically have been, the highest status person in the room, humiliated in that way. In the typical crazy English thing that, the royals can't be in the same room as a divorced woman, is both comic and dramatic.
And I'm glad you brought up the divorce, where it was super dramatic for that period. For us, what's the big deal? Yeah. And you make a point of educating us.
Well, we had to educate because, as you say, to a modern audience, it seems crazy, and we had to just work, to make it clear just how disastrous a divorce would be to a social life.
And then the other incredible set piece is the Royal Ascot. How it looked. I mean, you had jockeys, you had real horses, you just this.
Yeah, we were told by the regulators about animals that we could only run the horses twice. So we had 12 cameras to make sure we got every moment of those two runs.
And the Royal Ascot is no longer it's modern now.
Yeah, so we had to go to a race course in northern England called Ripon that had more
Okay.
period architecture.
And then you contrasted, which I love, with the county fair,
Yeah.
where they all seem equal.
Yeah.
I mean, you start the film in London high
Yeah.
society and then Royal Ascot, and then but it ends
Yes.
with them in this county fair.
Yeah, and that we wanted that to make, again, it's that sense of the ensemble shared experience. And I think in these divisive times, examples of group dynamics and collective support are very important.
And speaking of group dynamics and ensemble, I know it is that you have so much coverage of actors, reaction shots. Can you tell us about
Yeah, I mean, Ben, the very brilliant cinematographer, and I've worked together a lot, and I just said we've just got to get coverage of every actor at every moment, because there's a lot of, you never know which glance is going to pay off. And I'm so glad, we had a reaction shot from Mr. Carson pretty much in every scene because he always offered something.
Your costume designer, who's brilliant, and her name is
Anna Robbins.
I noticed, yes,
Yeah.
I noticed in this film something phenomenal happens where Lady Mary is wearing bold colors, and as the movie progresses, it turns into pastels, and there's a switch between Edith and her where there's a power dynamic switch with the color schemes of their costumes. Can you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I remember is I wasn't sure scarlet would be the appropriate color for the dress at the ball, but Anna was absolutely resolute about that, and I'm glad we went with her instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But she's a genius. Those costumes are phenomenal, and in person they're all the more phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about Noel Coward and the importance of him, and also finding.
Yeah, I mean,
the
well,
actor.
I've been trying to make a film about Noel Coward for 25 years, so I was really happy to have him in the script. And what was fun about it was that we think of Noel Coward as a man at the end of his
60s,
life,
70s, old man.
and this was when he was 30. And again, we had to convey to the audience that it was like they had Harry Styles or Lin-Manuel Miranda in the house. He was a huge star at that time. And, we looked for actors, and this guy, Artie Fruchan, was fantastic and did a lot of research, and I'm really happy how that played out.
Yeah, he was in. I saw him in Leopoldstadt.
Right, that's right.
The
Stop Up play. Yeah.
That sequence with it was always intended to be a musical number, and him sing and.
Yes, and in fact, it was been revealed that in a previous television production, Julian played Noel Coward and sang that song. So you can find that somewhere, but that was quite a different rendition, I can assure you.
Paul Giamatti, in the show, he had made an appearance with Shirley MacLaine, who plays Lady Cora's mother, but they never had.
Yeah, this is a viewer that drove me crazy because they were separated by the ocean, and in the series when her mother and brother turned up, they never had a scene. So it was really important for me that in this film, Paul and Elizabeth or Harold and Cora would have proper scenes, and I think they do. And of course, it was amazing because Elizabeth was pretty much the lone American in this bastion of English culture and rule following for 15 years. And in this film, she had Paul and Alessandro as a support network. So that was great for her.
How difficult was it? You give enough time for all these relationships. How was it for you? Was it difficult to juggle? There's so many moments and beats.
Well, I've been quite lucky. I've done quite a lot of ensemble films, and like Cranford and
My
David
Weekend
Copperfield.
with Marilyn.
But again, the writing. I mean, Julian. He told me that when he got offered Gosford Park, he learnt film writing by studying all the great ensemble films of Robert Altman, and I think that pays off in this. So that helps. It's also, frankly, as a director, to have the opportunity to work with arguably the greatest ensemble on British television ever. You know, it's just a gift. And then just to make sure we've got the coverage, so in the cutting room we can make sure everybody has their all the beats they need.
Did you feel pressured about it's the end, and you need to bring poignancy to it?
Well, I didn't feel I mean, I really wanted to lean into the emotion of that, because I certainly felt it as a viewer, and I thought the audience that have travelled with the show for 15 years would want that. And you know, I did want to lean into the boyhood, the fact that these actors, I mean, I think that they've been working on it for 15 years, and in the story, they've aged 18 years. And so I find that really powerful, where Michelle looks back and sees her younger self dancing.
Correct.
And all of them, you know, younger, and that's life, and that's the theme of it, you know, that you go through life and you have happy moments and you have upsetting moments, and I really wanted to lean into that.
Was that all along in the script, the dancing montage with the past?
No, it wasn't.
And how did it come about?
Just something I really wanted to try, and we went into the, we looked at the series to try and find moments, and you know, and I think I said that when I went to the set and I saw the servants dance, it just that was in my mind, and it seemed like something to lean into.
Yeah, a friend, my colleague Sean and I watched the film, and we both said the same thing, that like we were waiting for Sybil, and like, you know, we saw.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. That was like some talk about, should Sybil be the final image or should Violet?
Yeah.
And I was resolute that, of course, the tribute to Violet is vital, but in that family, losing a beautiful young woman in childbirth would have been much more poignant and painful than Violet at the very end of her life, and I'm glad we did that.
Mm-hmm. I briefly talked to you about this, the fact that we have seen Highclere Castle all throughout. It shot in so many different ways, but you managed to show us in the last shot with Cora and Lord Grantham walking away in a way we had never seen it before, in the magic hour. Can you tell us about it?
Well, it's hard because they've filmed 60 hours at that location, but being a film, we had more time and drones and so on. But for me, more than that is when they hold hands. I just love that moment, and it's like a simple bit of body language that means more to me than the epic shot.
Yeah. And Elizabeth hugging Mrs. Patmore.
Yeah.
There's just all this just gems.
Yeah, but that was Elizabeth's idea, I think, and it's nice because you never expect to see that embrace, particularly after the scene I just described, where Mary and Anna, who probably should hug, don't hug. So it's all quite interesting that.
Mm-hmm.
And Julian had the idea for Robert to touch the wall, and I wasn't really sure about that, but I'm so glad that happened, because that's kind of powerful too.
We talked briefly about Chekhov as well,
yeah.
and there is this Chekhovian
there
quality.
Is, yeah, there is. And it's a cherry orchard. It's losing their house and all of that.
Wow, it's a gorgeous send-off that you've done, and congratulations. And
thank you. We're all very proud of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, come back.
I'd love to.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Spread the word.
Thank you. Lovely.